So allowance, it can breed that idea that you're just given money, right? That it's just something that's handed to you, but commission is something where you're earning it.
Hey everyone, this is Yvette Hampton. Welcome back to the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. I am so glad that you are with me this week. We have a new guest this week, and you are going to be so encouraged and so equipped for a topic that all of us deal with at one point or another. Actually, it's a topic that we all deal with on a day-to-day basis. But if we're looking at getting our kids into college and just looking at how to train our kids up to have financial freedom and to honor the Lord with their finances, this is the week for you. Whether you've got a 2-year-old or a 17-year-old like I do, this is an episode that is going to be an encouragement to you in every way. So we are going to talk to Kristina Ellis today. She is a Ramsey Personality. And so Ramsey, yes, from Dave Ramsey, if you're wondering if that's the right Ramsey, she is from Dave Ramsey. And we're going to talk with her about these things. But before we get into our conversation, I want to say thank you to our sponsor, BJU Press Homeschool. No parent should homeschool alone. You have a God-given calling to bring up your child to love God and to steward his creation. And BJU Press exists to help you be successful in that endeavor. Visit their website at bjupresshomeschool.com or call 1-800-845-5731 to connect with an experienced homeschool consultant. Well, Kristina, welcome to the podcast. I'm so glad to have you with me this week, and it's been fun chatting with you before we actually hit the record button, and just getting to know you a little bit and your heart for just using our money in a way that honors the Lord. So introduce yourself really quickly. Tell us who you are.
Well, thank you for having me. It's an honor, and I'm excited to chat. I'm Kristina Ellis. I'm a Ramsey Personality, like you said, which basically I talk to people about money. I help people figure out how to win with money, how to avoid debt, to save, to build wealth. And my passion point is kids. I was fortunate. My mom talked to me about money early on. We grew up in a low-income household, and my mom had a conversation freshman year with me where she basically was like, Kristina, I love you and I believe in you, but I just can't afford to pay for your college education. So you need to start thinking about this early on. And it was a lot to process. I wasn't super excited about it at first, but I knew that she was being real with me. My family had a lot of struggles growing up. My dad passed away from cancer when I was 7 years old, and my mom was a single mom and immigrant after that. She was an immigrant and a single mom after that, so she had to figure out how to support us on her own. So it was hard to choke down, but she was trying to help. It motivated me. It got me out there. I got fired up to figure out how to win scholarships, ended up winning over $500,000 in scholarships, and was able to get my bachelor's degree and master's degree completely debt-free.
Wow.
And so that put me out on a mission. Now I'm so excited to help other students figure out how to do it, to help parents figure out how they can get their students through college debt-free, and then also just set them on a path to financial freedom.
Yeah. Yep. Love that. And being on that path to financial freedom is such an important thing that is hard for a lot of us as parents to teach our kids if we have not been on that path and we don't know exactly how to navigate that with our children. Mm-hmm. I know that that's something my husband and I are always trying to balance and trying to do ourselves and set that example for them. But it's hard when you've not been raised to do that and really being trained. And we actually went through the Dave Ramsey program many years ago, and we're so grateful for that. And so it's hard, though. It's hard to teach our kids because the way of the world is so different. I mean, the world just spends money very differently than what our biblical standard is for spending money. And I shouldn't say spending money, but controlling our money. And so we're going to talk about that. I was telling you before, and I don't know if I've actually said this out loud on the podcast. My oldest daughter, like me, everyone who listens to the podcast, they know that I am not a math person. I don't love math. My oldest daughter is the same. She does not love math. My youngest daughter, she really takes to it and she likes it so much better. But my oldest got to algebra and she was like, Mom, I'm never going to use this ever in my life. And I was like, you're not wrong, sweetheart. I mean, what do I say to her? No, I'm 48 years old and I use algebra every day. I just don't. And for some people it's great and they need math. And if their career depends on that, that's fantastic. But every single one of us, even though we may not use algebra in our adult life, we all have to know how to manage money properly so that we don't end up in this world of hurt and destruction, because it really can cause so much destruction. So maybe take us through kind of, let's start sort of at the beginning. Our audience, you asked what our audience range was, and I said, it's everywhere. It's all over the map. We have those whose kids haven't even started homeschooling yet, like yours. And then we've got those who are graduating their kids. And so we're all over the map. But let's start kind of maybe with some of the early years and how we can start training up our young kids to manage their money well and understand this term financial literacy. What does that even mean for us as families?
Yeah, well, first I want to say you don't have to be a math whiz to be good at money. I think that that is such an important thing to highlight because you're right. A lot of parents feel like, hey, I wasn't good at math. I'm not good
Yeah.
at math. I don't like math. And I didn't learn about money, but that does not mean that you can't be good with money and that you can't teach your kids to be good with money. I love, Dave often says that we teach God and grandma's ways of dealing with money. And
Nice.
it's not super flashy. It's not going to be the craziest TikTok hack where we teach this complicated system. It's like we teach 7 baby steps that are super simple and easy to follow because we want people to know that like even if you're not great with money or you have, a family, a generational legacy of poverty, of not being good with money, you right now today can decide to be good with money, to win
Yeah.
with money, and it's not difficult. You don't have to be a math whiz to do it. So with kids, it's exciting, especially the young ones. They're always paying attention, right? Like
Yeah.
they're always curious. I have a 4-year-old and a 2-year-old, and already we're starting these conversations about money. We're letting my 4-year-old know that things cost things as we go into stores, and he wants the toy and he wants the different thing. Being open about, hey, this is how money works. And obviously, it's a very basic conversation at 4 years old, but just starting to have those conversations instead of being like, don't worry about it. Start to have those really simple conversations with them and let them know, just the brief level of how money works. And then once they get a little bit older into elementary school, you can really start to show them, how you work for money. Let them
Mhm.
know that it's something that you can earn. And we often say, don't do an allowance, do a commission where they have to actually earn their money. And you can also teach them the principles of generosity and that giving is important, that savings is important. But the biggest thing is just making sure you're starting those conversations and starting to have some structure around them because they're curious. And
Yeah.
so many people feel intimidated to talk about it, but they want to know, especially at that age.
Yeah. Yeah. Talk about no allowance versus commission. Let's park there for a minute.
Yeah, so allowance, it can breed that idea that you're just given money, right? That it's just something that's handed to you. But commission is something where you're earning it. Like there's obviously the chores that you do in the house that are just part of being in this house. And
Right.
then there's also opportunities to make money. We want them to value work and to understand that that's how the world works. That when you go into the real world, you have to work and earn money. So it's teaching those principles early on that it's not just something that, you're given every week just because you exist. It's like, no, you
Yeah.
actually have to work for your money.
Right. Right. You don't have a right to it. It's something that
Mhm.
you earn. So then let's go back to maybe those littler years with kids. Let's talk like elementary years. How how in a practical way can we help our kids to earn commissions? Because like you said, and I appreciate, doing dishes is just part of being part of the family, right?
Right.
And doing your laundry, cleaning your room, making your bed, those things, that's just part of being a family. So you're talking maybe beyond something beyond that.
Yeah, something beyond that. So have a little list created where they have opportunities to pick up chores that are over and above their normal, where they can earn some money. So maybe it's washing the windows, that'll get you 50 cents. If you sweep, that's an extra dollar. Or maybe if you vacuum, it's 75 cents. But make it clear so that they have the opportunity to choose to work, where it's like, oh, okay, it's not just whenever mom and dad deem an opportunity, but they actually know these are opportunities I have to raise my hand and say, hey, I want to be part of earning money. I want to build my savings. I want to have the opportunity to work. But make
Yeah.
that clear and kind of talk them through that.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Let's take a break. We'll be right back. We want to thank all of our sponsors for making this show possible: BJU Press Homeschool, CTC Math, Apologia, and IEW. Without them, we wouldn't be able to do this. Visit the show notes for links to these great companies and thank them for supporting the Schoolhouse Rocked podcast. We are back with Kristina Ellis. You talked before the break about 7 baby steps, and so I want to kind of go through those and let's make a list. I love lists. I love checklists. I know this is not a checklist that you can check off in a day, but let's go through these baby steps of how we as adults can be financially responsible, but then teach that to our kids as well.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's so important that parents, kind of wrap their head around money themselves. Because like you said, there can be shame, there can be intimidation in talking about it. But it's like no matter what your situation is, if you're still dealing with student loan debt, if you're frustrated because maybe, you still have credit cards or you haven't built wealth the way that you want, right now, today, you can fix that. You can start working your way to a great financial position. So the baby steps, number one is saving $1,000 starter emergency fund. So having that little bit of cushion when you start the steps. Baby step 2 is paying off all of your consumer debt. This is credit cards, it's student loans, it's car loans, it's personal loans. This is where we get rid of all of that. And a lot of people say this is like the hardest step because this is where you kind of got to go scorched earth. We are tackling this. We're using this thing called the debt snowball. So you line up your debts from smallest to largest and you start paying them off from smallest to largest. So you are going gazelle intense. You're going as tense as you can to try to pay all this off at once. And so you attack that smallest debt. And once that debt is paid off and you're paying minimum on the rest, once that's off, you're going to roll that debt into the next smallest debt. And then have more to pay on that. And then you pay that off. And then you just keep going like a snowball. And before you know it, you're out of consumer debt, which feels amazing. And I know it sounds intimidating. Some people are probably listening going, oh, I feel like that's going to take so long. But we found that most people pay off their debt in 18 to 24 months in baby step 2. Baby step 3 is where you save a fully funded emergency fund. So that's 3 to 6 months in expenses. Baby step 4 is where you start saving 15% towards retirement. Baby step 5 is saving for kids' college. Baby step 6 is you're going to pay off your house, which I know is so weird in our culture, but amazing when you think about what it would feel like to have no payments in the world, to owe no one any money. It's just incredible. And then baby step 7 is where you build wealth and give. And it's been very exciting to be a part of Ramsey and to see a lot of people see us as like the get out of debt company, but it's amazing because we're actually such a wealth building company. We have, Dave wrote a book last year called Baby Step Millionaires. And there's so many people coming through this building who have become millionaires following these super, super simple steps. It sounds like, that's why we said God and grandma's way of doing money. It's not that difficult. You don't have to be the math whiz to become a baby steps millionaire. So it's super exciting that anyone can do it.
Yeah. I remember when we went through the program many years ago, him saying something, and I'm going to completely botch this phrase, but you will probably know it. And it was something like, spend like no one else so you can give like no one else, or save like no one else so you
live
can give
like no one else so that later you can live and give like no one
there
else.
We go. Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like being willing to make the sacrifices now.
Right.
So that later on you can have an amazing, abundant life full of peace.
Right.
It's like it may be a little bit challenging right now to save and to pay off debt and to do all these different things, but it's so that you can get to a spot where you have total financial peace and freedom.
Sure. And be able to impact God's kingdom. I mean, I think that's one of the greatest things when we are able to be financially responsible like that, is that we can then go out and use what the Lord has blessed us with to impact others. I know that we have been on the receiving end of that so many times. And I know so many people listening to this podcast, as we were fundraising for the movie, and even with this, I mean, really the Schoolhouse Rocked ministry is a full-time ministry for our family. And so we have sponsors for the podcast, and then we have people who give financially to help support the ministry. And it's incredible to me that these people, the Lord just puts it on their hearts, and that they're willing to give part of what the Lord has blessed them with in order to support us as a ministry. And that goes for all sorts of ministries, whether it's the church or whether it's missions or, whatever it is, that those people are willing to just say, you know what, God has blessed me abundantly, and we want to then put back into God's kingdom. And I think there's no better way to live. So yeah, it's absolutely awesome.
It's such a dream and so exciting to get to baby step 7, because it's like to get to be that person who pours into ministry, who doesn't have any fear around money and can just think through, what does God want me to do right now in this season? And to have the flexibility to go out and actually do it without money stress is just such a gift.
Yes. Yeah. You talk about money stress, and that is something that is real. We've had it. I know most people have had it, and it just weighs on you. It's such a burden to have that stress of debt just sitting on you. And
it really does. It's a lot. And a lot of people don't feel like they got financial literacy early on. They don't feel like they learned, in high school and going
Right.
into college, how to do basics of money, which is
Yeah.
so critical. And then they find themselves down the road stressed
Right.
and frustrated. So that's part of why I'm so passionate, is because
Yeah.
it's like, I want to help people realize that you don't have to stay in those feelings of icky stress around money
Right.
forever.
Yeah, absolutely. Because it affects your whole life. I mean, it affects your whole family. You hear the statistics about how many people, their marriages fall apart because of financial stress. And,
Mhm.
you've got in-laws, you've got financial stress, you've got other things that play into that. But financial burden is huge, and families can fall apart simply because of that. And that's a hard place to be. And so I love that you guys really work to help people not be at that point in their lives. So I do find it interesting. And I remember, again, as we went through this, it was so interesting that you first, before you start paying off your debt, you save. Explain that really quickly, why you say save $1,000 first, and then
Mhm.
you move into paying off your consumer debt.
Yeah, just save $1,000. So a lot of people want to get a huge emergency fund before they pay off their debt, but we're saying just save $1,000 so it can be that cushion
Mhm.
between, you and your focus and paying off debt and Murphy. So if your air conditioner goes out or if something happens to your car, that little bit of
Mhm.
cushion to kind of protect you, to keep you on that debt payoff journey. But a lot of people also argue, they're like, is that enough? That's a little bit nerve-wracking. But we only say $1,000 because we want you to feel that fire under you to get out of debt. We want
Right.
you to feel the discomfort of, oh my gosh, that's not a lot of margin. So I'm going to run as fast as I can to pay this debt off as quickly as possible.
Yeah. Okay. So let's put that in terms of children and us teaching our kids, because obviously we're not going to say to our 10-year-old, you need to save $1,000, before you can move on with your life. Do you do kind of a children's version of this and have kids have a certain type of savings account? How do you balance this out for kids? How do you break apart money that they might have coming in, whether it's through their commissions, or maybe they have a lawn mowing service, or like my daughter, that girl, she's always selling stuff to the neighbors. It's hilarious. Um, so just trying to figure out, how do we best teach our kids to get to the 7 steps as adults when they're children?
Yeah, so we have this incredible curriculum called Foundations in Personal Finance. You can find it at ramseysolutions.com/homeschool. We have one specifically geared to the homeschool market. And this is just incredible. I got to work on this project and it's been around for years. I got to be in the latest update. And it's amazing because it takes all the things that we wished we would have known in
Hmm.
high school, and it literally teaches it in a way that's easy to digest for students, and it gets them prepared for the real world. I mean, it's simple enough that kids can understand it, but it actually tackles the real topics we need to know, like taxes, saving, investing, how to pay off debt, how to avoid debt completely, how to
Hmm.
rent your first apartment, how to buy a car. All these things that so many of us got into the real world and we're like, wait, what? How do we do that? It explains that in a way that they can digest.
Yeah, yeah, it's great. My oldest daughter is doing it right now. And she had started with the workbook and DVD program last year. And then this year she moved into doing the new online version that you have. And it's fantastic. You guys have done such a great job with it. And it's made specifically for teenagers and for homeschoolers. And so it's easy for them to understand. It's easy for them to just digest and be able to put it into practical world, real world practice. And so I love what you guys have done with that.
Yeah, I've
And
been on the
tell
team
us the
for
website again. I'm sorry.
ramseysolutions.com/homeschool.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been on the team for a year and a half. And when I first came in and saw what they did with the Foundations project, I was just blown away. I
Yeah.
was like, that is literally what we all wanted growing up.
Right. Right. Yeah. Again, because if you're not going to use algebra as an adult, I'm not saying people shouldn't do algebra. I know people are going to yell at me. I have to do algebra. Fine. Do algebra with your kids if you must, but also
Right.
teach them to handle their finances.
Let's get practical things. I posted something last night on Instagram where it was somebody saying, I'm really glad I learned about parallelograms instead of taxes. That's really going to help me this parallelogram season.
Right.
And I just think that's so funny because it's like we did learn about so many things that I'm sure it's helpful to engineers or maybe
Yeah.
a doctor or a scientist. But for most of us who are not in those fields, we're not using them in our everyday life. So
Right.
to have some of these practical things that are actual topics that you're going to tackle literally every day of your life, it's so important.
Yeah. Yep. It sure is. Well, we're out of time. We're going to come back on Wednesday. We're going to continue talking about this, about finances, about how to just honor the Lord with our money and teach our kids to do the same. Kristina, tell me where people can find out more about you and about Ramsey Education.
Yeah, you can go to ramseyeducation.com. This month is Financial Literacy Month, so we are doing a really special giveaway to honor teachers. So if you're a teacher, go to ramseyeducation.com. And if you want to keep up with me personally, you can go to KristinaEllis.com, and that's Kristina with a K.
Okay, we'll put those links in the show notes. And homeschool moms count as teachers, correct?
Ooh, that's a great question. I believe
know.
So.
I have a teacher ID from HSLDA, so
there we go.
Yeah,
I love that.
We'll put those links in the show notes. Thanks for joining us. Have a great rest of the day. We'll see you guys back here on Wednesday. Bye.
Education is discipleship, and this is something I didn't understand until I was probably 3 years into homeschooling. The Bible teaches us in Luke 6:40 that when a student is fully trained, he will be like his teacher. And as we look around the culture right now, I think it begs the question, who is teaching our children? Who is teaching our children, and what are they teaching our children? And to me, the primary benefit of having my children home with me is I am able to impart my worldview to my children